You met Peggy then. She was sad and down and out because she wasn't getting along with her husband. She was a young woman at the time. How old, Carl?
At that time, she had to be in her late 20s.
Oh, that old at the time?
Maybe not, maybe 25.
I see.
And she didn't like living with him either, and they lived on a farm, and he was milking
Goats?
no, he was milking cows, and she didn't care for that either. And I remember she had an old Volkswagen Beetle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a picture of that in one of these books over here with her little boy. And so she went to the dance class, and that's when Free Store was starting to form. And I believe that she was the red, white, and blue woman. You know, very straight. Her mother was a violinist in the symphony in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
And so between those two, they had a very prominent family. I told you the father, his father, was the head of the Actors Union in TV.
Oh, okay.
So he was a famous guy, and he's a character actor. He had something that happened to him. He moved to Mendocino and he joined a theater group. And he was in a play. And in the play he was played a man that died in the last scene. Okay. So the night they were finishing the play, it came to the last scene, and comes to him dying, and he died on cue.
Unbelievable.
And Hollywood knew all about it, so it really made him more famous. So when my idea with Peggy, she asked me to go to Los Angeles before she had met George. She wanted to go down there and use her son as get in the acting world.
Mm-hmm. And what was his son's name?
Adam Starr Farrar. So anyway, she moved over on Arthur Street, up second floor.
One of the apartments.
One of the apartments. And she was having difficulties with her husband. So I said to her, I lived number 3 on Charles Street. And I said, Peggy, the only thing you can't do is come to my house at night. In the daytime is fine because your husband's working, you've got no problem. Please don't come to my house. So one night I was laying on the couch and she came in and she sat in a chair next to me. And she had a really tall brother, her brother. And all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and I look up, and I had a window glass door, I could look and see. I said, it's your husband. And I wouldn't open the door. So he broke the window, and he's fooling around with getting in. And so he gets in, and her brother's standing there with him. It's like he's on his side or something. So I know I got to deal with 2 men. And her husband's a bull. He looks like a bull. And this brother is a huge guy. And just so happened, a guy by the name of Jim Renfro, who I knew when I first came to Cotati, him and his wife, he happened to be staying with me, and he was a burly guy himself. So he didn't, we didn't get any fisticuffs with the brother. But I said to her husband, get your ass out of here. You don't belong in my house. I didn't let you in. You broke in here. I can call the cops on you. I don't call cops. So he says, my wife's in here. I want you to leave her alone. I said, get out of here. So the second time I pushed him out. second time he comes in again, and I said, so Peggy's zinging out of the door in between. She gets out of there, and he comes in my house looking to do me, right? So I took him and I threw him out the door, and I went outside, and he comes after me. Stop tape.
All right, so
Okay,
so he
recording.
comes back in the house again.
He comes back in the house again, and this time I gave him a what do you call it, on his back, and I took him and
Gave him what?
Huh?
You gave him what?
Hammerlock. I gave him a hammerlock.
Oh, you mean
I took one of his arms and put it around
Right.
his back, and I said, "You better get out of here, or you're going to end up in that ditch out there." So, because he saw Jim Renfro, and because her brother had backed off and she had split,
Right.
he left. Today, just today, any day, he if I was standing in last time I saw him, I was standing in Vito's with the kids. Vito's dead. He comes up. Pulls his car up. He's very involved with the kids. He had his racism always overlaps. There was some kids that came to his house because he's a big pot dealer, and he had a big barrel of pot. This is in Petaluma. And they came in his house, and they did a robbery on him. Now, he wasn't there. His wife was there, but they did do her. One of the kids was an Indian kid. I know his mother, and he stayed outside. But they did his ass and put him in heavy prison, and he wouldn't get up off of it. You see, here's a pot dealer, and he's got people coming to his door. Kids, they were friends of BB and Sky. They just were looking, to get well or get the pot or whatever the hell it was. Anyway. He prosecuted them to the fullest.
He did.
So that kid ended up doing 4 fucking years on those honor farms and hurt his. He was on the fire team or whatever they call him, and hurt his leg. So he came out of prison as a cripple.
Well,
he never deserved that.
So Peggy was in the troop. How did she meet George?
So because we kept going to San Francisco, and we also had this guy that was a photographer. His name was Clay Gerdes.
I remember him.
He was our photographer, and he knew how to get into all the magazines.
Yeah, I remember
in
that.
all the girl magazines.
Right. So you would go down with the troop to San Francisco?
Yeah. So he was also comic. He was involved with comics.
Okay.
So George was heavy into comics.
Oh.
So
you mean comic books?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He must have come up here, and Clay says, "Come over and see the show." It's and has all these photos to show him anyway. And immediately, Peggy went for this dark guy with a beard, right? In the meantime, she's got me, and she's got Vito too on her butt, I always call her like the orangutan. She's a redhead, and when you see her, you see this kind of a monkey orangutan woman that goes after you. She's very aggressive. She's an aggressive woman. So she saw this cute guy in the he became a stage door Johnny to a free store.
Oh,
so he
I
would
see.
show up,
Okay.
And he would invite her to coffee and stuff like that. And then she said, you know, I wanted to move back to Hollywood. So that was between her and I. And then when I went down to Hollywood and got involved with them
In the 80s.
In the late 70s and 80s,
Right.
George competitioned with me.
Oh, he was still thinking there was some competition to be had?
But see, still in all, I was very friendly with his family. Vito would come there on several occasions. He was doing gong shows, but he was also involved with a woman by the name of Joanne Wint, who did these spectaculars like some of those spectacular rock and roll things that I don't know if you know about them. I forget that, but they went, and also those guys from from San Francisco that were fags, and they did a big thing in theaters where they would.
Oh, the Mitchell brothers. Was it the Mitchell?
No. This is the fags that had their own situation down there. They're called a certain name, and I always forget the name.
And they did what for what reason?
They were theatrical. And
Finocchio.
Vito, huh?
Finocchios?
Well, kind of like Finocchio's, but this was, they wouldn't, they had facial hair, and they played North Beach, and they played the whole city, and they became very famous, and a lot of those guys today are still doing it. Dusty Dawn was one of them. She went into their theater too. That's how Vito got into it. I met Dusty Dawn at that time when I lived in San Francisco. Anyway,
Is Dusty Dawn came from San Francisco?
yeah, she came from.
And she came up because of
but
Vito?
She came, yes, but she came from me, because I met her. I was involved with Dusty Dawn in the city. She lived around Kezar Stadium.
Oh, okay.
And she got very involved with Vito and had that little boy.
Ocean.
But I prompted her having the little boy. She says, I want to have a child with somebody, but I don't want a husband. So I told her how to do it. I said, stock your house with a lot of food and nice things, and invite a guy that you like in the community that you know is a smart guy. So she did. She invited this guy. He didn't give a shit. All he wanted to do was get laid and have a nice time. So she kept him there while she was ovulating or whatever it is, and she had Ocean Michael Moon, and that's why she moved up to Cotati.
And then, of course, she's dead now.
Yeah, she's dead, but she was one of those people, and they did a movie about that sect of guys.
Well, they did.
Yeah. So anyway, Vito was involved with Joanne Wint, who did stuff like that too. When they would rent the Whiskey A Go Go, and these guys had specialties, and they'd bring in big, things on sticks and stilts, and
Puppets and all this stuff.
Yeah.
What year was it?
Late 70s.
I didn't know you.
Freestore was, they graduated from Freestore, but then he found those people in LA, and he started going there too to see them, because George and Peggy were involved in that.
Oh, okay. And they were all still friends.
Yeah, and they were poor. They lived in a little tiny house right at the end of where the curve was to go up Sunset to downtown. And they lived in that community. And their next door neighbor, I remember, was, damn it.
Writer, actor, what?
Yeah, but he didn't live there, but his kids did. And that boy would be his playmate. He was one of the original guys in. This man was the original guy in the movies He was very short, and he was with Judy Garland and all the
Mickey
movies.
Rooney.
Mickey Rooney, next door to them, and as that's who Adam Starr's playmates were.
Okay.
Also, George has a son who's a baby, and when I lived in this on Western and Hollywood in this hotel, George lived right down the street from me. Originally, George lived. There was a hotel that was very ethnic, very black, and they lived right behind him. And his wife liked black guys, so she would, when George wasn't there, she'd invite some of those black guys, and they
You mean
were
Peggy?
No.
Who?
George,
The first wife.
His first wife.
Okay.
She's German. She's very blonde. I almost have her name. And she became a junkie with these guys, right? So that's why Leonardo could do a movie about junkies. He knew exactly what was happening. You see?
But Peggy was his mother.
But Peggy was his stepmother, and when George decided to move out of his wife's realm, but still maintain her over here behind the hotel, he would go and stay with Peggy,
Oh, I
who
see.
lived 2 miles away down Hollywood Boulevard. Okay.
So he really grew up with Peggy.
His life became much richer with Peggy, because also you have to understand that you see, because Peggy had an influential mother,
The violinist.
and because of the father star, he could get an agent. In Hollywood, if you have an agent, then you're going to get work. You and me, just somebody off the street, don't get no work. You get in the line.
Is that why they moved back to Hollywood?
They moved back to Hollywood because she could get an agent, and she could put him to work, and he did a lot of work.
Adam Starr did.
Adam Starr did a lot of work.
But DiCaprio is the kid, is George's kid.
Yeah.
He's not acting at the time.
No.
He's
But
just a
this
young.
is the way it happened. He's Adam Starr loved me because we were going to be a unit down there without George. If George don't show up, you could see in the pictures he really thought I was, because he came into Free Store, and he would just come to watch us play, and he liked what I did on the stage. You see. And I would play with him off the stage. You know, I would do a number with him. Okay, so anyway, one day I went to an audition with him. I'm talking about Adam Starr. And George and Leonardo came to pick us up. I went in, he got the job.
How old was he at the time?
He was about 7.
Okay.
Got the job. Comes out, he's so happy, and his brother says to his father and me, "Wait, how about me? I want to be in the movies too." Okay, so soon after that, we were downtown in one of those festivals, and there's a band on, and I'm out there doing my number by myself, and who do I see standing next to me? Not Adam Starr, Leonardo's out there. So I said to his father, "Hey, you see, he's a blonde, he's a natural, he's going to become one of the most famous movie stars there is." I said that while he's just a little boy, and he's out there entertaining us. He's dancing, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, back and forth. When I came, we did gong shows together. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about Peggy and George.
I remember, I saw them.
We were birds, and we did a thing on the floor, and they gonged us and so forth.
You did various shows.
Yeah, I did one called Captain F. No, yeah, Captain F, the Disco Punk. I did 3 of those, and then I did another one that was the Swami and the something with Brenda, where she was in in some kind of a barrel thing, and I had a saxophone, and I was going, and she swithers out of the thing, and then I fall over, and she's supposed to capture me in there and take me into the barrel with her, but it never happened. Okay.
Now that's Chuck Barris, right?
That's Chuck Barris.
Right. Chuck Barris's show. Yeah.
And I got her to do. I got that girl to do. There was a thing about. It was like fashion, not a fashion show, but beauty contest. Yeah, so she did a beauty contest, but you know, that's when I found out about Brenda. She never would extend herself. I mean, if you, Chuck Barris knows, and so did the people that worked for him, because we had other people in Free Store come there, Patty Wipe and that lead girl, that Chicano girl.
Not Loretta.
No, the dark one.
With the hair, the kinky hair. What was her name?
Yeah.
Oh, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
What was her name?
And she was very entrenched in Hollywood, but.
What was her name?
Anyway, she tried to get in the Gong Show. They wouldn't let her.
Why?
They have a sense of people that know how to do it.
Yeah.
And both of those girls were doing a twosome. They were doing something together, blah blah blah, and they were dressed in Free Store stuff.
Right.
I almost said it. And he wouldn't let them work. So it meant that they couldn't get a ticket with him, because it takes two shows and you got a ticket.
I see.
Anyway, I don't know where I was with this.
Well, we're back in the development of Free Store, and so she came to Free Store. Who are some of the other members of Free Store in its early days? Mary America.
I have pictures of her.
There's one right there. So
there.
yeah,
Just
why don't
give me
you
that.
mention some of the names? Mary America was one, right? Kathleen.
Kathleen, yeah. Kathleen was my ex-old lady, but she was going with
Boujou.
Boujou, but he isn't pictured here.
No. So
this guy was.
Who's this?
That's Lori Allen.
That right? Who
Laureen Allen.
ended up opening the cabaret?
Yeah.
Whose father's a multi-millionaire banker.
I saw her
right?
recently when Groovy died.
Oh, you did? What does she look like now?
She looks good, and she was with her daughter, who looked even better.
Where is she living now?
Sebastopol.
Who else is depicted here? Sacco?
You know that Lori Allen is a very rich woman.
Oh yeah, her father from Tiburon.
Yeah.
What about, who else is indicated in here?
Her girlfriend. What's her girl? Catherine's right next to her girlfriend.
Here.
Yeah. What's her name?
I'm still wondering about the woman with the kinky hair.
That's her right there, the dark one, right there next to Vito.
Yeah, what is her name?
Yvonne.
Yvonne. She used to be Glenn Sacco's girlfriend.
Yeah, that was his girlfriend.
Right.
And they loved cocaine.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Well, I know Glenn did because I used to sell it to him.
That's why I had that thing with Jerome about cocaine.
What did you have thing?
You didn't know that happened?
What? Tell me the year and tell me what the story is.
Jerome had a cop that lived with him.
Which one? Jim Morrison? The
He
guy that
lived
was on the
next door to
Katati?
Vito, I know that. He lived
Yeah,
next door to
that was
Vito.
Jim, I think.
Yeah, and what happened was I knew that David and all those guys were doing a number.
Right.
And
this was in the
the
80s.
police chief was a new police chief. I think his name was Gary.
Gary Lester.
Yeah, there you go. He came into town and said, that cop is bogus.
Right. Jim Morrison was his name.
So I got up in a meeting and said, yeah, but Jerome's got a thing going. So he's gonna be against Lester because he's got his own boy in the police department. Jerome hit the ceiling and called me into the street and said, you son of a bitch, you fronted me off, blah, blah, blah. I said, what's that thing about oven in the street or something. I don't know. Anyway, I said, fuck you. But that was, Vito got very upset about it because I think David Roth says, listen, Vito, he's copping out on us. So that's when I left town and I went to work for Bob Roberts. I remember that
What year was this, Carl? We need to
well,
play a year.
I know exactly when it was.
80.
No,
When?
it was 78 because I moved to San Francisco with Bob Roberts. Bob Roberts was a guy that I knew in LA. I knew him as a teenager. He was one of the guys that went out in the birds with me.
Oh.
And he came up and he needed to novice with one of the big time tattoo artists. So he came up here. We bought the dog catcher's Cadillac. It was happened to be sitting in front of the house for months.
Yeah.
Tony Tiger. And we became a unit in San Francisco, Bob Roberts and I. But what had happened up till then, as I was running for office, Robert Davis and the other Robert Davis won.
Yeah, I remember well, because you remember that Robert Davis won by 8 votes. And he also held an illegal election.
And I only got 8 votes.
Well, he, if you remember correctly, as soon as Robert Davis won, Lenny and I turned around and sued the city over an illegal election, claiming that he illegally had the election, and we took the case all the way up to Superior Court,
Yeah.
and of course Davis was found that, of course they found that Davis could have the seat, and then later he was busted as a pederast
Yes.
over at Rancho Cotati
Right.
High School, and I think he did big time jail, didn't he?
And Lenny lived next door to him, or in the same house, or something, didn't he?
No, what it was, yeah, over on School Street. But that's a whole nother story. Bob Davis. So, but you had called Jerome out because you were angry that Jerome was supplying cocaine to Yvonne.
No, was got his own cop and was copping out on this new guy who was a kind of a groovy guy, and he just could see the picture better than anybody because he's the head cop.
Right.
He knew that Jerome was pulling a number on him, and I just fronted Jerome.
So at
out.
that point, Jim Morrison was let off the force, I would imagine, a little bit after that.
Yeah, he wasn't there very long.
No, and then of course Jerome moved. Good Dogs got sold to Rafa, right? And Jerome moved out of town to Petaluma.
So here's Free Store. Gets cut right in half because the cocaine people, when I said that stuff, there was also a thing about cocaine about it. Everybody left Free Store. The whole fucking bunch of them.
Why?
Because they couldn't see us being upset about people using cocaine.
I see. Vito was upset as well.
Yes.
Right, because you guys had always been anti-drug.
Yes. So,
Right.
and this cop was involved with it. He was his man, right?
Right.
So anyway, here we get cut in half, and the other people started their own theater, including Lori Allen, because Lori Allen at this moment had said, her father had come to her and said, if you get out of Free Store, you stop doing Free Store, I'll buy you that woman's club over there.
Which was the cabaret.
And he does. He lays $64,000 at that time. That's cheap, right? Expensive, and gave her the club.
Right.
So she moved out of Free Store. Glenn moves out. So does
Yvonne.
Yvonne. So does anybody else except here who we have left. Loretta, Vito, and Peggy and myself.
All right, now Kathleen, Mary America, her father
No, she was on their side.
I understand, but her father was a big executive for Bank of America.
That's right, and her mother was a big executive for the phone company.
Yeah, they had a lot of money.
Yes.
Now, she eventually married Boujou, and Boujou became a lawyer,
Right.
and he practices law in Sonoma County now, doesn't he?
I think they moved to Sacramento.
Oh, they're not here anymore?
No.
They don't live on
moved
Arthur
10 years
Street?
ago.
Oh,
10
they don't
years-
live on Arthur Street
No.
anymore.
No.
Well, I know that, wait, hold on. I know they were here in 2000 because when I came, we had a wake for Lenny at the park, they showed up.
Yeah.
And Boujou told me, I'm a lawyer. And I felt like saying, you bastard. All the work we did, you would
Yeah.
never sign a petition,
Yeah,
you would
right.
never
He
get
was like
involved,
that.
you would never
He
do
was
a
always
damn
like
thing.
that, right? I think it was her that pushed him.
And now you're telling me you're
Yeah.
so you think they moved and they're gone, huh?
Like Pam Brown, Kathleen had a Jones,
What was the Jones?
drunkenness.
Oh, she was a
She
drunk?
knew how to hand. Do you know that the first day that I ever saw Kathleen, she was in the trade winds, and she was drunk,
Uh-huh.
right? So the second time I saw her, she was laying in the gutter in front of the trade
Oh,
winds.
you're kidding.
And I took her home with me, and I said, "You're going to stop drinking, right? And you can move in with me if you do." So she did, and she became my girlfriend. But then that other girl was Boujou's girlfriend,
Mhm.
the other one there,
Right.
and then Boujou started coming around. So he had two girlfriends, Kathleen and her.
Right.
And I said, I came back from Hollywood once, and she was still living there. And I said, okay, I have to make a move with you. You're moving out of here because I can't deal with you and Buju and blah, blah, blah. I've had it. I need a girlfriend, and that's it. So she says, no, I'm not going to move. I said, yeah, you are. So she takes her fingernails and rakes my face, blood. So I slapped her in the face, turned her around, took her to the door, and shoved her out the door. I says, have them come and get your clothes because you ain't coming back.
And
in
she
here."
never talked to you again, did she?
Oh yes, she did.
She did?
She's my friend.
Oh, she did talk to
I
you.
never stopped being in love with that girl. It's just, for one thing, she couldn't have any babies. She was, something was wrong with her tubes or whatever. And the other thing was that thing that she had going with these other people.
Right.
There was no exclusive. I couldn't exclusive with her.
Right, right.
And she went to Hollywood. I had her at UCLA. She went to a semester of summer school at UCLA, so I was visiting her there. And, I still had a thing going with her, but she disappointed me so much that I had to get away from her.
Now, when you moved into Cotati, was Fred Schumann's there? Did he have a shoe store?
Yeah,
He did.
sure. Chicken Head.
Chicken Head? He
Chicken
was
Head would come down the street every day, and he just kept getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And so one day he died. His brother told me they had to take a wall out to take him out of there.
Yeah. No, I visited him once. He was a terrible cocaine user.
Yeah,
He had a
but
hole
also-
in his nose he used to whistle
He,
through.
he also himself to death.
Yeah. Well, his mother you remember his mother
Yeah,
used to
his
run
mother
around
used to sing on the street.
and lie on the
Yeah,
ground and all
yeah.
kinds of Mrs. Schumann.
Mrs. Schumann, and Vito loved her. He used to
We all
egg her
did.
on to sing.
We all
Yeah.
did. We all loved her. And then Sam Jaffe used to call the cops on us in the park all the time because the music was too loud. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then the cops would come as soon as they left. We jacked the music.
The only thing we had was Tula that, she was on our side.
She was on her side, but she moved up to Highway 12 area.
Yeah.
And
Got that house.
and you know what was so funny is because I was looking for a place to live, and so I met Tula, and so Tula said, "Well, you can stay in my room. It costs you X amount." I was 21 years old. I just moved up there. Well, I also was a dope dealer. I brought 50 pounds worth of marijuana on a train.
Wow.
On a train in suitcases, and I would get off in San Francisco, and I'd get on the bus with my suitcases. They was bricks, 2.2 kilos. And I would come to Sonoma State, and I'd have break parties, and then people would take their section. Well, one time, I was living at Tula's, and so I had, my friend Sam came up, and he said, "Here, look, I got 50 pounds in the car." And I said, "Okay, well, let's put it in the closet over here." So to make a long story short, Tula came home, and she opened the closet, and she saw 50 pounds worth of marijuana just lined up. And she said, "You're out of here." She kicked me out. I said, "What am I going to do with my pot? Don't kick me out now. Wait till the morning. I could
Yeah.
get some." No, you're out of here.
Yeah.
So with the bare chested, I loaded the pot and I went up to Paradise in Kenwood or something. But she was stooping the dog catcher
Yeah,
at
right.
that time.
A
That was
long
her.
time.
That was her secret, that she
Yeah.
loved the dog catcher. All right, so just to button up this portion of our day together, because we're going to have to come back. My question is, should have come earlier. What was your first question? What was the Fraternity of Man? And wasn't Applebaum a member of the Fraternity of Man?
No.
Okay, what was the Fraternity of Man, and can you talk a bit about it?
It was my brother and I, after Frank Zappa, decided to do our own band. So Vito let us audition in the basement.
This around what, 67?
Yeah.
Okay.
So who was loose at that moment? We got some young guys. They were okay, but there was no real. But a singer came along, and he could write songs, and the other guys in the band could write songs. But Elliot Ingber was loose. He's from the community, Fairfax community, and he had gotten out of the army, and Frank Zappa hired him to get rid of Elmer Vastine, who was one of the premier blues players. Now, Frank didn't want a blues guitarist. He graduated into some of those heavy blues.
Almost classical blues.
Yeah. If I say the name, it's yeah. So he replaced that guy, Elliot Ingber. But Elliot Ingber's bad habit was LSD, and he couldn't get out of it. Today he's still an LSD freak. I talked to him on the phone when I was at Gale's.
Oh, where does he live?
He still probably lives in the same place on there's a Pussycat Theater on Santa Monica Boulevard near Fairfax, maybe.
I can almost see it.
And he lived right across the street. And my brother lived there too. He was a good friend of my brother, and him were good friends. That's why he could get into the band, you see.
Okay, so but back to the Fraternity of Man.
So that was my name. That's in Vito's brochure. The last thing he writes is that the young people in the world will find a fraternity of man.
What does that mean? What does it mean?
It means that the social mores of the world are that the young people are going to kick each other's ass, blow each other away, but one of these days the youth of America is going to feel where it is and get it together and form a fraternity of man.
But at this time it was a band.
Well, we named the band that.
And the
My
name
brother
came
and I-
from where?
That saying at the end of Vito's thing.
Okay, so you borrowed the saying at the end of Vito's thing to make that the name of your band.
Yeah.
You then, this fellow, the guitar player, became a part of your band?
Elliot Ingber, yeah.
Okay, and then where did the Fraternity of Man perform?
Everywhere.
Oh, you were at the Whiskey, you were at
Yeah.
all
Everywhere.
these places.
Became a famous band. Here's the deal. The deal was this. The same guy that A&R'd the record with Frank Zappa, Freak Out,
Right.
A&R'd that record because we went to him, my brother and I, and my brother dealt with it, and Tom Wilson was his name. He was a famous guy. He did Dylan. He did the Let's Have a Party. What's the song that Dylan had? Something that he did in his apartment. You know, I can't remember the name of the song. Anyway, he and A&R'd my brother's band, our band. He and A&R'd it, and then when we were finished, there was no money for publicity, So he says, I'll take half of the band. I'll take 51% and I'll put you on the street. I'll
Get your
get
venues.
Billboard, I'll get Rolling Stone, whatever it is. And my brother turned him down. So that's almost when I walked away from my brother. I said, you stupid son of a bitch, what difference does it make? If you have 10% of this thing, you're going to be in gold if you get this guy to do this for you. So he wouldn't do it, and Wilson backed out, and so it was up to my brother to find those avenues.
And he never did.
He did, kind of. He worked Hollywood. He probably took them out on tour once or twice.
Were they good? Did they have a
were
following?
okay.
Did
They
have
were
a
okay,
following?
but they were inventive.
Did they
There
have
was
a
some
following?
Yes, they had an underground following with the Factory and some of those other bands. They were like second bands. They weren't. They never reached the top because they were like my brother. All those guys, they never know how to fit in to the right people. When you had a chance, my brother had the best of chance for that band to go right to the. And also remember that they did the music for the movie with Peter Fonda and Hooper.
Easy Rider?
Yeah, they did the music.
Fraternity of
yeah,
Men did?
Yeah.
Were you with them at the time?
In fact, I think they sang that song in there.
Were you with them at the time?
I was asked by Hopper to do the movie. He says, I'm going on location. When I get back, we're going to go to wherever it was in the Middle West. Not the
Right.
Middle West, but the West.
Right.
And we found a commune. He had already found the commune, and that's where we want all of you to come and dance at this commune. That was our gig.
You and Vito, or
Vito and all of us.
all of you? Okay.
There were people as you look at the commune in this movie, you see at least 5 to 6 people that were involved with us at the time in that commune.
Uh-huh.
They never pulled off the thing. There was supposed to be like a buckboard, drawn by. But that's where they were going to put the band on there, and they would put the dancers around. So we were supposed to do this, and it never came off.
So you never
So
went.
they invented They invented Jack Nicholson.
Well, Jack Nicholson had already starred earlier in James T. Farrell's book that was made into a movie, Studs Lonigan. That was
Yeah.
his first debut.
Yeah. No, I can tell you before that.
What?
There's something about an anteater.
Oh, yeah, he was in the science fiction
Yeah, I
film.
have
That's
that.
right,
I have
exactly.
that movie.
You're absolutely right. But then Studs Lonigan gave him legitimacy, and then from there he went on to
Yeah.
Easy Rider.
But he also did. I remember him doing a Dracula movie where he was he was the guy that serviced Dracula. He changed into being a Dracula in the movie.
Mm-hmm. So you never went out to that western site then?
I never went there because, but that was when I was supposed to go to court.
I see, and that's when all that
See,
went
he
down.
knew that we were. I thought that he would get this thing going in November, and we would go on location, and then I would deal with it from there. You see, but he didn't show up, and I went to his office in Beverly Hills, and they said he's still on location.
Where did you meet him?
I met him with Jane Fonda, and he came to Cantor's one night. And he also knew those people that I told you had that place behind the trip. In that there was an apartment house where this whore had, and that's where I started taking pictures of what was going on. And I didn't tell you that story.
No. What apartment house? Where? What street? What year?
This happened in the 60s, 64. It was an apartment house that ran, okay, here's Sunset Boulevard.
Right.
Then you come to a street that, right before La Cienega, there was a street that went down.
Sycamore. No, before La Cienega. Doheny?
No, it was
No,
a
is that-
small
that's
street. Okay, and then you went down that street, and there, way over in in the field, there was this big brick building, and I think it was 2 stories, and that's where I knew that I would see the Stockton brothers. Stockton. What's his name? What's his name? He played with Hopper in a lot of his movies.
Dean Stockwell?
Dean Stockwell and his brother John. Didn't we go through this?
Well, we talked about Dean Stockwell, but not in this context. But so that's where you met Hopper as well.
No, but he was in that enclave.
It was
See,
in that enclave.
because of the Stockwell brothers and all these other people, I had beautiful pictures that I took at a wedding. I remember.
No, we did talk about that. Because I told you I delivered pizza there. That was the place. It was down the street from Filthy McNasty's.
Yeah.
It had a real non-committal storefront about it. In other words, you really wouldn't even know that there were apartments there.
Yeah.
And you had to be buzzed in.
That
I used to take pizzas up there all the time.
She was like a madam. She had an apartment in there, and she had tons of people from Hollywood that was visiting her, and those guys were there.
That's where Hopper was.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I met her. I met what's his name?
Stockwell?
No. I met with Jane Fonda. I met him at Cantor's. He picked up on me, and there was a whole lot of people that came there that night.
What, you mean Dennis
Dennis
Hopper?
Dennis Hopper.
Right.
And he picked up on us, and then we did the trip with
Nicholson. Didn't Nicholson
No.
do the trip?
No.
Who did it?
It was Peter Fonda.
Peter Fonda did the trip.
Okay.
Were
So-
you in the trip?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
Was Vito in there?
He was in there, and when I saw the trip, I think I have it, by the way. He's loaded on LSD, and he comes into this club, and he has to come. It's a cellar club, so he comes down the stairs. As he comes down, there I am with my old lady at the time dancing, and several other people were dancing.
Which club was it?
It was a fictitious club.
Oh, it was a set.
But it was one that I think Love did, and it was right there at Hollywood Boulevard. It was on a
Nice.
side street there. You know where where you magazines.
Sure.
Yeah.
Around near Wilcox,
Yeah,
that area.
that's it.
I know exactly where you mean.
So anyway, it was that's where Frank Zappa came to see us when I had the Wildflowers, and he said, "I wished I could be in your band because you people are loose and you don't care." I played an ashtray, a metal ashtray, and Bob Roberts was he looked like something out of a horror movie, and he had bangs and shit. But he was the harmonicist. So we had all these crazy guys that didn't know how to do any kind of music at all. We were worse than the Leaves. But somehow
The
we had
Leaves. They did Hey Joe.
Yeah.
They wrote Hey Joe.
Yeah. No, they didn't write.
I think they did.
No. What's his name was doing Hey Joe before them.
Oh, right.
One of the Birds.
I saw the Leaves in '65 in my junior high school.
Yeah.
So the second thing I wanted to mention before we begin to terminate is the other clarification. What was the connection between Lenny Bruce, you, and your brother?
My brother didn't have anything
He didn't.
to do with Lenny Bruce. I did. Hello? Come on.
Rose.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Does it say how many minutes?
About 5, if it's an hour tape.
All right, so we got a few minutes left.
5.
Let me just ask you. So, what was your connection with Lenny Bruce?
Well, in North Beach, I went to see him.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about him, and I just happened to, somebody said, hey, this guy is pretty good, go down there. I never laughed so hard in my life. I went to a place at the end of Broadway. There's now a porn, no, it's not porn, it's one of those girls, you know, the girls that dance.
Right.
I'll give you a lap dance.
Right.
It's a lap dance place. So, and coincidentally, I lived upstairs in the hotel that was upstairs. That's where they said I had to live. You know, and I also lived in the hotel that Lenny lived, and I happened to later on rent the room that he lived in.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know him
And
personally?
yeah, I knew him personally because he was a friend of Vito's, and he would come to Vito's and bring his daughter, and his mother came.
And how did Vito meet him?
I don't know. I remember that Vito knew him for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There were special people that used to come to Vito's. There were anybody walked in that place. That's
Who-
what he had. He had a clientele.
Who else? Name some other names that would go to Vito's, for example.
Joe DeSantis, who did tons of murder mysteries and stuff.
Who else?
Uh,
Nicholson went there.
well, Nicholson came at the end and bought his stuff.
Right.
Right offhand, you know, it was just, to me, it was like Hollywood.
It was a Hollywood Beverly Hills connection,
Sometimes
wasn't
he
it?
would have a dance class, and you knew the girl next to you was in the movies because you saw her before,
Right.
and you know what I mean.
Right.
So it was that kind of a number. But he had strong clientele. When he was in his heyday there, he couldn't be moved. It was later on when it started to dwane. I would say the dwaning with Vito is when those girls who call themselves the GTOs broke off.
Oh, really?
And it started. That's what I mean. Hollywood started to become the hate place, and we thought, and Vito, when he saw the cops coming and me get busted and me almost get killed, he says, "It's time to go. I'm going somewhere else."
Yeah, it started to decay very
he
rapidly.
thought that I would go to Cuba.
Why?
He thought I was going to go to Cuba, and I did try.
What, for dancing purposes?
Know that Cuba was a revolutionary place.
Right.
So Valerie Porter was married to Art Kunken at the time. Do you know who he is?
Who is he?
He owned the Free Press. He was
Oh,
the
I used to sell
originator
it.
of the Free
Okay, I
Press.
used to sell it on the street.
Yeah, and me too. So anyway, so
He was going to Cuba, or
yeah, I thought I was go to. So when I did go, I had two ways to go. You go to Mexico, or now I couldn't speak that language, so I went to the white people. I went to Canada.
right?
Yeah, I went north.
But you
And-
never made it.
I never made it because I went to the embassy, and they were so inundated and so fractured at that time. The Cuban government was not on a good list with the Canadians at that
Oh,
time.
really?
Maybe if I would have come there in the springtime, because they had a thing going, you could go somehow get to the island if you would chop
Cane. Yeah, they had brigadistas.
Yes,
That
but
was
it
a big-
wasn't that time. of year.
Venceremos Brigade.
Yeah, it wasn't that time of year or so, and they were being heavily scrutinized